I will have to say that for Apothecary Diaries, this is probably the most complicated episode that they've done thus far. Up to this point, like whenever there was a mystery of some sort, they've always had the chance to kind of explain it, and then essentially everyone, the whole audience, can be like, oh, okay, I get it, all right. I think this episode was probably the first one that there's probably still some people that are like, I don't get it. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. Glad that you are here, so then that way someone like myself can explain it to you, and you too can walk away with the understanding, be like, oh, okay. I will have to say, I love this series for this, because I have been waiting for one of these episodes to where it was gonna be way more intricate than there have been before. Kind of like how, if you've seen my reviews on X and Y, if you haven't seen that anime, beautifully done mystery, and it was so good up until the last episode. It was just so good, and every episode ended up being super complicated, and thus was a lot of fun to decipher and figure it out up into the very end. So something like this, I'm glad that they have done it, because I am ready for it, and I love coming back and be like, all right, let's talk about it. So we're about to break this down. Let's get to it. First things first, let's go over the beginning with Jinshi. Now, Jinshi, dude is limber. Oh my lord. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? In the sword style, you know, that he's going with. He's like, you gotta be limber. More power to him. Because we know he still has nothing cut off. Regardless, Jinshi is plagued by like his past. And I'm glad that we found out that in the main theme song, like this episode knocked out a lot of things in the main theme song about the doors and the mysteries and stuff that's happening, as well as the child being Jinshi. And it seems like this season is going to be where Maomao probably is going to figure out everything about Jinshi. She keeps talking about how he's a mystery and such, but we know more about Jinshi than Maomao does. And now it's like, can she figure it out? She's going to. It's only a matter of time. And she might be able to answer the things that are plaguing him, like the rock that he actually found that we saw in his flashback. We know that Jinshi is the Emperor's brother. The nation knows that the Emperor has a brother, but if you remember in season 1, they talked about a lot more often that, oh, the Emperor has a brother, but he's sickly and no one really sees him, or, you know, and everything is like, okay, all right, fine, whatever. But, which I'm not even gonna go into right now, but with the whole thing that happened around Jinshi's birth and the whole swapping of babies and one baby dying, but then another one living, which was Jinshi, and how they kind of did some trickery there, and which got Maomao's father kicked out of the palace. Regardless of the fact, Jinshi is the Emperor's brother. And even though we know Jinshi's true mother from the first season, we know that, of course, Jinshi's mother being the actual Empress Dowager. That was at the beginning of the episode, as she had that scorned look on her face. Now, we also know that the two older people there, the older guy is the Emperor, the previous Emperor, before he passed away. There's a lot to uncover there, and there's probably going to be a lot more found out about Jinshi's past and what happened in the past, and maybe whatever is plaguing him. But the biggest thing in this episode was about the doors and the Mother Royal. There's an old tale about the Mother Royal, of course, birthing the first emperor, and thus everything that's happened there, and he brings the land together, and thus what they have now. That's not necessarily the truth, so we gotta understand of multiple different things. One, royals, especially back then, if you know your history, you know that when you are of royalty, that they normally would marry other kin, like cousins and stuff like that. So their bloodline would be more secure. Royalty was all about keeping within the same bloodline. But what a lot of people don't know is that every now and then they would also introduce someone else into the fold. So then that way the bloodline wouldn't be as thick and birthing, you know, children that have issues. So they essentially brought a woman from afar who was very intelligent, gives birth to, you know, the next emperor. Normally they'll be like, all right, thanks for your services, and then essentially kind of cast her aside. So she would end up being in history a nobody. So what does she do in order to make sure that her lineage stays strong? She decides to make this shrine, temple, however you want to say. She, as we know, had color blindness. So she was like, all right, we make a myth, a rule that only those that are able to pass this shrine are ones that actually are deemed plausible to rule. Okay, well, the key to the shrine is the only way to pass it is if you're colorblind like her. So that's why they would make sure if the emperor, whomever would be the emperor, would be someone from her lineage that was colorblind just like her. And just in case they get some other person, they would make sure his concubine, who could assist them, would be able to point out the correct answers. That would mean that the lineage stays strong. So if the guy was colorblind, he would be emperor. Or if an emperor would marry or have children with a female that was colorblind. So thus, the Mother Royale, she would always have a child ruling over this land. She, as Mao was saying, kind of like a takeover of the land, if you will. The emperor was like, oh, so I'm not one from her bloodline. So this was something that the emperor, who probably was sitting there muddling around, trying to figure out whether or not if he was the proper descendant from the Mother Royale, going through this temple multiple times, kind of gave him the answer that he isn't. The old dude, Maomao, caught the fact that he pointed to Jinshi and was like, well, not necessarily pointed, but bowed down to Jinshi, was like, well, make sure you look after her type deal. And Mama was like, well, that's a little funny, but okay, sure, whatever. And I love this old man because he kept pushing Maomao. Maomao's of the ones, if you've been watching up to this point, she solves stuff, but she normally, gives the answer to someone higher up for them to carry out, the resolution. She normally is not the one that goes out about and gives the answers out to everyone. Well, this old dude was like kind of pushing and prodding her to be that smart individual that we know she is, to give the answer out, so then that way the emperor can be impressed with her. So instead of, how Mama would have liked the old man to give the answer, that's why she's like, dang it, I hate this dude. And thus was given the answer to the emperor and such. Now, the key thing with colorblindness, the only problem I really had with this episode was the fact that they only kind of went with one type of colorblindness. Now, if you know colorblindness, there's multiple different forms of colorblindness. It's not just one type. So they kind of went with the predominant colorblindness where you can't see red, brown, green, most of those colors there. And then kind of from that formulated the whole doors thing, which is, okay, it's fine. It is what it is. See, the way that I would have went through the doors, like if it was my very first time going through there, if the sign says, hey, don't go through the red door, guess which door I'm going through first? Just to kind of check it out. Like, okay, what happens if I open this red door? Maybe it's one of those like, oh, we want to test you to see if your worthiness to be emperor by bucking the system. If someone tells you something, are you going to be intelligent enough to take their advisement, but know that maybe you must overrule them because you're the emperor? So that's what I would have done the very first time. But then I'm sure the emperor, he's gone through this multiple times. They've probably already done that. But yes, I was like, okay, all right. And then after, my first time realizing it, the second time I was like, okay, all right. And Mama was able to solve it on her second try as well. Hope that shines some light on you guys for those that were confused. I'm looking forward to these episodes because the preview even showing the Empress Dowager is going to be coming on. So it's like, oh snap, that should be the Emperor's mother. Another character enters the game, if you will. One thing I was thinking of when I was in my reaction was the fact that they're probably introducing all these characters to us, and especially the Emperor's blood lineage. So then that way, when all trouble happens, whether people are trying to assassinate others or poison others, we can kind of understand the bloodlines so we can see how important it is how important the Emperor is, how important Jinshi is, all these other characters. So then that way it's like, oh snap, they're not just trying to assassinate someone small, i.e., oh, you know, how in the first season, you know, Jinshi were like, oh, you know, Jinshi's he's just a eunuch, whatever. He's, you know, he's just a guy. But then we learn how important he is, and it's like, oh snap, he's not just a guy. They're really trying to murk him. So I appreciate, like I said, man, this is a great episode. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. And let me know what you guys think about the episode. Of course, you know, if there's anything that I left out that, or if you're confused about anything, comment down below. Because like I said, I love intricate episodes like this where, man, there's a lot of discussion that can happen from it, and that way we can learn so much more from it. So what you guys think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and of course, if anything comes up, hey, we'll be discussing more anime like the Apothecary Diaries and others here on the channel, so make sure you hit that bell icon so you're notified for future videos. You guys be safe, you take care, and Lord willing, I will see you next time. Bye for now.
This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.